Hello, Twin Cities and all across Minnesota. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Jeffrey Asamoah with Thrive Edge Solutions. I'm a business consultant and credit specialist. But listen, today's not about me. I'm here with a very special individual, Christy Thompson of Christy Legal, and we're going to be talking about child custody. Right now, I'm going to let Christy tell us a little bit about herself and why she does what she does. All right. So, Christy, welcome. And Christy, go ahead and just tell us who you are and why you do what you do.
Hey, Jeffrey, thank you for having me. Um, and I live in Roseville with my daughter and my fiance, Lonnie, and my fiance's daughter. And I have been doing family law work for 13 years. I used to work for attorneys, and then someone who works in the legal field asked me to do what I do today because we want to keep people out of the litigative family court process as much as possible. Of course, it's not always possible, but it's going to be more and more possible the more people who know that you can do it without attorneys sometimes. And so I'm a paralegal and a mediator. I am not an attorney. So there are, things I can do and things I cannot do. I work with both parties, and those are the types of situations that I can work in. So I work with people who haven't filed for divorce yet, haven't filed for child custody yet. I work for people who have filed those cases and are like holding up the white flag and like, I don't know what I'm doing, but we know how we want to settle this now. Like, can you do the legal work to make this stop? And I can also work with people who already have a child custody and parenting time order, but they know how they want to change it. And or people who want to change the child custody order and they're not sure how they can change it. So there are a lot of things that I can do. And the reason that I love my work is because the most important decisions that you will ever make are who you have a child with and who you marry, because no people can have more effect on your life than that person or those people. They affect your daily life, especially if you have a child, because you're going to be seeing that other parent for the rest of your life. And and the other reason that I love doing this work is because, you know, I know that living in an unhappy home is a horrible thing. And I also know how difficult it is for children when they don't have two good parents in their life. I was widowed in 2009, and I totally prayed, um, since, my children's father couldn't be in their life, I totally prayed for another father figure. It didn't happen until my kids were grown, but, that's the way it went. So I truly believe in kids having, two good parents involved in their life.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely, Christy. And I was honestly going to ask you, like, because you sound like you are passionate about what you do, and that typically comes from some level of experience, right? Not just experience in the job itself, but some level of life experience. So definitely thank you for sharing that with us. Now, here's a question I've got for you again. I've got, man, a lot of questions a lot of different angles we can go about this, right? Because child custody and that subject, I've dealt with it on some level or the other, and I believe a good number of people have as well too. But for those who don't know, Christy, tell us, what is legal custody of a child?
Yeah. So legal custody is who gets to make decisions about the child's medical care, dental care, mental health care, also about the child's education and the child's religion. And normally, both parents are equally involved in this. And, there are some situations, under which, it's not a good idea for one parent to be involved in that. But like 99% of the time, both parents are equally involved in this. And, it's very appropriate too. Both parents, conceive the child and um, love the child and want what's best for the child. And so, as long as a parent loves and wants what's best for the child, why wouldn't a parent have the rights to make those decisions?
Absolutely right, right. You're right. It's not just one child that, it's not just one parent that conceived the child. So it's definitely necessary for both parties, to be involved. And I'm so I want to ask you another question here, but before I ask this question, here's what I want you to tell us. I want you to tell us. Typically, I'll save this for the end, but I really want you to tell us how you help people with who are in this situation of child custody, right? Where there's a child custody battle. I don't know if that's the right terms to use, but how do you help people?
Yeah. So when it's an outright battle, um, as a paralegal and a mediator, the most that I can do is mediate with them and try to help them find a common ground, try to help each party see, what might be in the best interests of the child. So before I do that, I'm asking a lot of questions and like collecting a lot of information. And at the same time, I'm hoping both parties are listening, to what each other is saying about the child and about the situation. And because unfortunately, a lot of times when we're angry at someone or when we've been hurt by someone, we are not our best self
Mhm.
and we are not listening to the other person. So sometimes it's actually kind of a lot of the times when I'm meeting with people. Um, the person will say something, and then I'll be like, okay, so I heard you say that da 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 da. And then the other person will be like, oh, that's what you want, Jim? You want blah, blah, blah. And Jim will be like, I've been saying this for the past 3 months.
Wow.
And, but like Sue isn't listening to Jim. And so it's almost like I'm an interpreter.
Yeah.
Um, and so sometimes it's like literally just making people listen to each other. And because, I mean, sometimes it's way worse than that, of course.
Right.
And sometimes, both parents are being selfish instead of thinking about the child because when we're talking about child custody, the court 100% is focused on what is good for the child and
Mhm.
honestly really doesn't care about the parents. Like, let's just be
Right.
honest. The court
Right.
doesn't care about the parents. Like, okay, so just know that. If something's inconvenient for you, if something costs a lot of money, whatever, it's like, you guys have a child. Um, and believe me, if you guys choose not to use mediation and a paralegal to handle this reasonably, it's going to cost a lot to handle it. And you'll have to pay for a guardian ad litem, a child custody evaluation, um, and all the attorney's fees. So if at all possible, instead of having it be a battle, contact me and, let's handle it more sensibly. So it's something that costs you folks a couple of $1,000s instead of a couple of tens of thousands of dollars.
Wow. So it can get messy if it doesn't get dealt with in a civil manner. Okay. That's
Yeah.
that's uh that's good to know. Definitely, I know this will help somebody out there watching this. Now, you talked about legal custody, what legal custody is, right? I would like you to tell us a little bit about physical custody, what that is, and I guess what's the difference between legal and physical custody.
Yeah. So physical custody is who has the child at what times during the week. And so, basically, it's like, okay, mom has the kids on Monday and Tuesday, and then every other weekend. And dad has the kids on Wednesday and Thursday, and every other weekend. Or it could be, alternating days. Or, when the kids are older, it could be 1 week with mom, 1 week with dad. Um, the parenting time schedules, they're just a whole bunch of different parenting time schedules you can have that reflect the physical custody that are tailored to, the parents' work schedules. Um, because, if mom or dad works 70 hours a week, then we have to take all of that into consideration. Or if mom or dad travels a lot, there are just a lot of things that we need to take into consideration. And so, physical custody, there are two types of physical custody. And the first one is joint physical custody. And like it sounds, it means like you both, have equal parenting time. And so that would be like the 2-2-3, the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, every other weekend, or it could be every other day, or it could be 1 week on, 1 week off. Now, the other type of physical custody is called sole physical custody, SOLE, but really it's a misnomer because it nobody solely or only has physical custody of the child. So I really hate that word. There are a lot of better words, but whatever. I don't write the laws.
Right.
But it just means like literally that one parent has 1% more of the parenting time than the other parent,
Okay.
And sometimes that's like a huge sticking point for people if if their identity is wrapped up in being a parent, or if it's like a power struggle, with the other parent, um, then that sole physical custody label, might be something that someone really wants. And so, what I want to say to those people is it's just a label, and it doesn't really mean that you're the only parent. And you could spend a lot of money getting that initial sole physical custody order, and you could spend a lot of money every 2 years trying to keep that sole physical custody label because the other person might keep every 2 years going back to court trying to change it. So, really, do you want to spend your money fighting court battles? Or do you want to have that money saved up, for family vacations or your school?
Future.
Yeah, your kids' school or like whatever your priorities are. Like, do you
Mm,
want to spend it on lawyers
mm.
or do you want to spend it on your kids or yourself?
Wow. That's really a lot to think about. That's a lot to think about. And I want to believe that, just like with almost anything else in life, when people are tied up in situations, they typically don't think about these things. Right. And I also want to believe that's where you come in, right? You're able to bring sense or to help people to kind of calm down a bit and really think things through. Right. Wow.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
So you touched on this a little bit, and I want to know if there's any more you can share with this. So you talked about parenting time schedules, right? So what are some common parenting time schedules?
Yeah. So, we can custom design one that works with your work schedule. Because, hey, there are people who work, overnights. And there are people who, maybe like 1 week only work 20 hours, and then the next week they work 60 hours. We have a lot of professionals here in the Twin Cities who have like crazy work schedules. And we just need to accommodate that and take into consideration what are the best needs of the children. And so, we could have like literally have a parenting time schedule where, 1 week, the 20-hour week, that parent has way more parenting time. And then the next week, where, the parent's working 60 hours, like, oh, that parent will see the kids like once that week,
Mm-hmm.
or something like that. So we work with the situation and the best interests of the kids. And we can get creative, or it can just be really simple, like 2 days with mom, 2 days with dad, and then every other Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Um, that, is a lot easier for kids to remember, especially when you have little kids and, they have like different buses they need to get on. When they're going to mom's and, they're going to dad's, it's a different bus. And, so having stability and, is actually really good. But if the parents have a crazy work schedule, there's nothing that can be done about that. Um, like I said, we'll take, non-work things into consideration if need be too. Maybe, someone, does a lot of travel to see relatives,
Mm-hmm.
or, or, um, someone has a sick relative and, might for a while, be out of town, for a very long time. And that's why we can revisit. So after you have your original child custody and parenting time order, if
Mm-hmm.
things change, then you come back to me and we redo it. And we redo it based on what the child's needs and the parents' needs are at that time.
Wow. Now, honestly, hearing from you makes me come to the realization that these things don't have to be as crazy as I've heard them to be. Right. And that kind of makes me wonder. So, and I'll ask you this question. This is gonna be maybe our last question for today. In your experience, what do you think causes two parents where it literally seems like there's just a battle, right, when it comes to child custody? Like what have you experienced and you believe could be the cause, all right, the deciding factor when parents come at it more aggressively versus literally just realizing the things you just said that, hey, we can actually do this in a civil manner.
Yeah, there are a couple of things. So, we'll start out with when we are sad or angry, we are not our best selves.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes that makes people act in a very selfish manner. And so when we're being selfish, we're not thinking about what's best for the kids. We're just thinking about how we want it and how it would make our life easier and maybe even how we can punish the other person because
Mm-hmm.
we're
Yeah.
mad at them. We're either mad at them because, he or she cheated on me, or he or she, spent money that now I'm going to be paying back for the next 5 years. Um, or, hey, wait a minute, we were supposed to love each other forever. This is not how it's supposed to be. All the angry and hurt feelings that people have when they're divorcing or separating.
Mm-hmm.
And so all those negative feelings get people, not everybody, but get some people really selfish. And so then they're making, self-centered poor decisions. And then some people, you know, when you point out that they're behaving in this negative manner, some people dig their heels in even more,
Oof. Mm-hmm.
unfortunately. And and then it's like, oh boy, then we're like beyond the point of no return because they've really dug their heels in because there's a subset of humans who don't ever want to be wrong and they are just going to fight to the death to prove that they are not wrong. And Lord save you, if you share a child with somebody like that because, it will probably be a battle forever.
Wow.
And yeah. And so that's one of the really big things is that people become self-centered. And and then, another is, I mentioned if like, somebody was cheated on, then they falsely think that it's gonna make them feel better. you know, it's going to take away that hurt from being cheated on, to punish the other parent but by using the children. And, instead, I could refer you to, psychologists and life coaches who will help you deal with that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that will not negatively affect your children, and it will not end up costing you folks like, tens of thousands of dollars for the rest of your children's childhood.
Right.
Um, and then another thing that happens is some people might have their entire sense of self, wound up in being a parent. And so then they want to be the parent who makes all the decisions. They have to be in control. They have to be the main parent. The other parent doesn't know anything. And yeah, I have actually worked on a few cases like that, and that's pretty rough. Um, and basically, you just kind of have to be like, nope, you're not. You know, in this country,
Right.
both parents do have rights to parent, and let's talk about, creating a parenting time schedule here. Um, because what's going on in their mind is not what, goes on in
Reality.
the
Mm.
family court.
Ah, gotcha.
And,
Okay.
and then, honestly, they're just people who have mental health issues.
Mm.
And I have noticed in the last 10 years, increasingly more people who are involved with people, either married or had a child with someone who has mental health issues. And oof, that just complicates everything.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I suppose. Wow. And it's just I always thought too that, and I think I've heard what they call that Minnesota is um I forgot the term. Is it a women's state, or what's the term?
Oh,
Uh
so actually, every state in the United States favors women
Favors
for
women.
child
Okay.
custody. Every
Okay.
state.
Okay. So it always, yeah. So I've always thought like off the bat, if you get a divorce or separating or you have a child with somebody, the mother always gets to keep the child. So apparently, or or basically that basically is the first approach, but it could be different based upon the situations and the different factors. Okay.
Absolutely, yeah. And so we are moving in most states towards 50-50 parenting time
Okay.
and joint physical custody. However, if dad either is married to someone who's trying to punish him and doesn't have an attorney, um, or just doesn't, know what's going on and doesn't advocate for himself at all, um, then yeah, he might not get, half the parenting time or close to half the parenting time. But if I start from the perspective of, okay, so you folks will be wanting each of you to have half the parenting time. Is that right? And then if they're like, well, no, well, I'm not sure, then we kind of like ask a bunch of questions and figure it out. But things have changed a lot in the last 10 years, and it is almost common for dads to have half the parenting time.
Cool. No, that's good information to know. Awesome. Well, Christy, man, you've laid it down. You've laid it down. You've shared very, very insightful information. I appreciate it. I'm learning, right? And I'm quite very well sure that others watching this are learning as well. So again, thank you for, just this discussion. Thank you for your time, and everybody else, thank you for watching. And if this conversation was helpful, I know I don't have to tell you this, but do share with somebody. And also stay connected for more discussions, real discussions like this. Thank you again, Christy.
Thank you.